you want to dominate in Black Ops 7, you need the right setting. Today, I'll show you how to see better, shoot better, and win more matches. Let's talk about it. As you can see, we are officially in Black Ops 7, and the first thing I wanted to do is obviously show you some settings, because a lot of people are going to be confused on a lot of these settings. And since I went to COD Next, I got an early look at how to set these things up. And I talked to the developers and they told me some settings that you may want to change that may actually help you a lot more than what you'd see in Black Ops 6. So immediately, let's dive in and take a look at the most important settings you can have, which are going to be your controller settings. So we're going to start on the controller page, and I will note we've got the Expel Pro Plus in hand right here. Sorry, my camera's turned a little bit, but we got the Expel Pro Plus in hand here. And the reason that I'm going to mention this is because this controller has paddles on the back, which decides how you're going to set up your button layout. So for me personally, I like to use the default button layout. And the reason why is because say you go and you put on tactical, that's going to switch where your circle button and your melee button are going to flip-flop. It's going to make it to where you can lay down very quickly by pressing this, and you can slide by pressing this right analog stick. But the issue with that is what ends up happening is that you lose a little bit of that aim, because when you press hard on your analog stick, it's hard to like also have micro adjustments. So that's kind of the big thing with tactical. Now you also have the option for bumper jumper, which changes your X button to be your L1 and your L1 to be your X button. Again, I just feel like this is one of those things that's going to throw off the way that you play. So I do not like that. The other thing that people like to do is bumper jumper tactical, which is a mix of the two. So it's both of those things. Across the board, I just feel like those things mess with your aim, which is why I have to recommend, if you have the ability, go grab yourself an Expel Pro Plus. It's got TMR sticks. It has digital buttons across the board, which means they're instant actuation. You can change your triggers from being full squeeze to full squeeze to a mouse click. It truly is incredible. This isn't meant to be an ad, even though it kind of is, because I play at such a capacity due to my controller. Now, moving down the line here, let's talk about the horizontal and vertical stick sensitivity, because I think a lot of people get this wrong. Call of Duty is not, for the most part, a vertical game. However, Black Ops 7 is going to have some verticality, and let me explain why. Whenever you hop in, there's now a double jump mechanic. Technically, you can do a triple jump if you bounce off of 3 walls. Now, it's a little crazy, and I know it's going to be one of those things that as a casual player you may struggle with. What I would recommend is considering changing how your vertical sensitivity works. So let's dive back into those controls. Let's take a look at what we've got here. Personally, I like to keep my horizontal stick sensitivity a little bit higher, because you're going to go left to right way more than you're going to go up to down. But I still have my vertical my vertical stick sensitivity set to a 1.4. So that means that I've got a little bit faster left to right, and then up to down is going to be a little bit slower. So for example, if I'm going like this, a little bit faster, up to down, a little bit slower. But it's so minuscule, you're not really going to notice it unless you're trying to hit a target. So without aim assist, you're not really going to think about it that much. But once you get aim assist, you'll really feel the impact of that. Now, next up, we have a bunch of different controls right here, which I wouldn't recommend having on because they're just not worth it, in my personal opinion. Moving down to controller vibration, this is one of those things you want to turn off, because if your hands are shaking, it's hard to aim at a target. In fact, while I was at COD Next, it was on by default. I did not realize that. I didn't think about it until I was fighting Biffle, and that didn't go well. And then after that, I fixed it. So cut controller vibration off entirely. That way it's not shaking your right thumb for the analog stick. Turn off trigger effect. This is going to be something where actually I'll even turn it on. And what it does is that I can squeeze my trigger to here, and it's not doing anything. But you have to like push a little bit harder to actually get your gun to shoot, which is stupid. I know it makes the game feel real, and if you want to play like that in campaign, sure, go right ahead. But you don't want to play like that in multiplayer when getting that shot on super fast is the most important thing. So again, keep this turned off. Deadzone inputs, by default, this is insane. By default, they have it set to the following settings, right? We have it set to 1599, 1599, and then 13 and 13. This is what it's going to look like whenever you look at your sticks. Now, the issue is you don't aim the way you're supposed to when it's set up that way. Now, if you have a controller with stick drift, maybe you want to turn it on. I don't recommend it for the right analog stick ever. I think it's completely unnecessary. Keep it turned off your right stick all the time, because even stick drift can activate aim assist. I have a great video on rotational aim assist on my channel if you want to learn how that works, but it can activate it. So never, ever, ever have that right stick having any kind of dead zone input, because basically what it is like, if I go in and you know what I'll actually do is I'll have to go back into the settings because it's being weird, but go in and we will test our dead zone. It won't even show it. What is happening? Is this real? I got kicked for inactivity. Hold on a second. Okay, we made it back in here, and what I want to show you is how dead zones work. So what I would like for you to do in your settings, go ahead and set both your left stick and your right stick to 0. Now I have TMRs, so you may see, first of all, they need to be recalibrated. So you can see that I'm getting stick drift here, which is kind of perfect actually. And I'll show you a recalibration tool actually in just a second, but you can see that I'm getting stick drift. And what you can do is if I like snap my stick out to like 6 right here, right? You can see that it kind of holds. I'll even show I'm not on it. I'm getting stick drift, right? So what you can do is you can go to your left stick and you set it to 6 and it's still being a little weird. Okay. You set it to 7. Now it's locked, right? That right stick set to 3. Let's move it up to 3. Still jittering just a little bit. You move it up to 4. It's not jittering at all, right? We're completely fine. It's a 0-0 now. But the issue is you lose a little bit of that micro adjustment. So if you're trying to stay on target, like if I move my analog stick just a little bit, it's not actually moving, which is not something that you want. You absolutely want to be able to move for those micro adjustments. So if you're interested in getting a TMR stick controller, which is what I have, I'll go ahead and show you the calibration tool. So as you can see, I've gone to DualShock-tools.github.io. And what this allows you to do is go ahead and open up your controller. You can see I've got the DualSense wireless controller and I can calibrate my stick center. So if you get a TMR stick controller and you're like, oh my God, what's going on? You can do this. This is specifically with the PlayStation controllers. I believe the Xbox ones are with the Xbox app. So if you have issues there, check the Xbox app. It'll do the exact same thing. So checking out the stick center calibration. Let's go ahead and start it up. And it says put both sticks to the top left corner. Drop it, continue. Both sticks top right corner, drop it, continue. Both sticks bottom left corner, drop it, continue. Both sticks bottom right corner, drop it, continue. And then it should calibrate them to where they're stuck right in the center. And now if I snap away, they work a little bit better. I do like to also calibrate my stick range. So you go ahead and like do a little wrap all the way around kind of slowly so that it can calibrate that range. And once you wrap around fully, you drop it, let it go back to the center, save it, and you're all set. Then you open up the game. We can go back in. Let me move around a little bit so I actually don't get kicked on this one. We'll go back in to our controller settings here. And if I go all the way back down to, oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong thing. We go all the way back down to these dead zone inputs and I set it to 0. They should be a little bit better. You can see how they kind of like stay right at 0 to 1, you know? And if you struggle with it, calibrate it a couple of times. Might take a second. You may like finick with it a little bit, but it gets rid of that stick drift, which I think is kind of the coolest thing. And obviously you're going to get that little shake. It's really something that doesn't show up in the game. So if you go to use your controller, like I'm not going to be walking whenever I'm like right here. So if I snap my thing and I'm hands off, I'm still hitting like between 0 and -1, but it doesn't actually do anything in the game because that's not how dead zones work. And Call of Duty kind of accounts for that like 0 to 1 calibration. So if you're looking to always get rid of stick drift, the option is there and it is incredible to have that available to you. And it kind of works out that I was able to have a controller that already had stick drift. It's kind of funny how that works out, but dead zone's a very, very important thing. And if you don't have, you know, a controller with these TMR sticks, they are way more accurate. Like, I mean, there's like a 12 to 15% error rate for regular analog sticks. These are like a 3 to 5%, which means you're going to be way more accurate. It's going to feel more snappy whenever you're trying to get onto those targets. You're going to feel like you're actually hitting when you should be hitting. So I would recommend setting your left stick minimum from 0 to 2, really, like your left stick doesn't matter as much because your goal is to go as fast as physically possible, as soon as physically possible. And this game doesn't have tac sprint unless you have the perk. So that's a whole other thing. But going into those dead zones and setting your left stick to wherever it is that gets it to stay at 0 is fine. But your right stick, always have that set to 0. Now, your left stick max and your right stick max are a little bit different. Right stick max, make sure that's set to 100. Left stick max, like I said, you want to go as fast as possible, as soon as possible, set that to 70. So what that means is that if I go to test dead zone, you can see that me maxing out and pushing to the very edge is actually hitting it at 70%. And then I can still go, if you look at my, I can still go, it's very hard to see, but I can still go a little bit past that 70. So that means that I'm going to hit max way faster, so that I'm moving faster. That was weird verbiage. You're welcome. So go ahead and set that up. The same thing kind of goes for right trigger and left trigger dead zones. You want to set those to 0 because that's going to allow you to shoot as fast as physically possible. Now, again, this controller that I have, it has mouse click triggers if you want them. So I think that's probably one of the greatest things about it. It's just one of those things. I do not recommend having a dead zone on your left and right trigger. Let's move around just a little bit so that I don't get kicked here. But let's go back in and we can check out the aiming tab now. This is where things kind of get a little bit interesting. So if you check out the sensitivity multiplier, I've not changed anything here. I don't change the look inversion because I'm not a psychopath. We do have the aiming advanced settings and we're going to dive into that, but let's check out, make sure target aim assist is set to on. If you have that set to off, you are not getting aim assist. It is that simple. Please turn it on, you crazy person. Okay. And then advanced aiming settings, I have these set up perfectly. What I recommend is don't do like an overall like sensitivity multiplier for ADS sensitivity. You can see this is set to 1 right here on my screen. I don't recommend setting that to like a 0.5 or something like that. What I recommend is going in and individually under aiming advanced settings, changing a custom sensitivity per zoom. So what I do is I set my low zoom to a 0.85. So that means, you know, if I'm running left to right, I can turn pretty quick. But if I ADS, it turns a little bit slower than that. So if I'm left to right, and then it's a little bit slower. That way you can stay on target more easily. And I'm telling you, it's a big, big difference. So I do that for kind of our low zoom stuff here. So you'll see I've got 0.85 for low zoom, 2 to 3 times 0.85. When you get to 4 to 5 times and 6 to 7 times, you're hitting a longer range. So you want to be able to move a little bit quicker. And then 8 to 9 and high zoom both need to be faster than your regular so that you can keep up with people that are moving really fast at a distance. So that's what I have it set up to. Speaking of the ADS sensitivity transition timing, I think it's better to have that go instant. The second you go to pull the left trigger, you're going to be able to get right to that change sensitivity. Third person, obviously set that to assist. And then aim response curve type, the way I want you to kind of understand this is that we have standard, which is like if you have no idea what you're doing, you've never dialed in your sensitivity, and you're just trying to have like a meh gameplay, set it to standard. Dynamic. This is not necessarily for experienced players. This is for people that kind of understand their sensitivity a little bit more. If you've dialed in your sensitivity, you're comfortable with it, you feel like you're getting on target pretty well, you want to set that to dynamic. Okay. And the reason you set that to dynamic is because it's going to have the most natural curve. So it kind of like starts slow and it ends slow. It's got like a little like slow down at the end. Like when you let off, it kind of like slows down. I don't know how to explain it, but it's kind of and then the other one's like a really long start and a really long end for standard. And then the last one, which I'll show you right here, which is linear, it's the closest to a straight line. So if you are really, really good and you know your sensitivity and you are the best player on the planet, linear is for you because that is direct input. It's like playing, this is a wild way to say it. Imagine playing mouse and keyboard where it's like your direct input and you know that's what you're, God dang it, it keeps happening. It's like playing mouse and keyboard where it's direct input, but you get aim assist, which is kind of cool. Give me just a second to get back in. Now it's time to go ahead and dive into the movement section. Now we have this intelligent movement section right here, and the only thing you really want to kind of take a look at is going to be your sprint assist. This is going to be set to off by default. I highly recommend you go and you change that to tactical sprint assist. If you don't know, the way that Omni movement works is you can sprint in every single direction. every single direction. But if you have this set to off, you have to manually tap the button to sprint in any direction. So what you want to do is set that to tactical sprint assist, set that to 0, set on sprint assist sideways and sprint assist backwards. And when you start to go backward or side to side and you start to go backwards, you'll automatically sprint the same way that you would if you were running forward. So it makes it way easier to activate that Omni movement. So now you can go and like dive sideways. You can dive backwards. You can set all this stuff up, which I think is actually super, super cool. And I think you'll really enjoy Omni movement once you understand that that setting is the one thing you need to change to actually use it at a decent level. Everyone gets this wrong. I don't know why it's so difficult for a lot of players to change one setting or figure that one thing out, but that is the thing that's going to change everything for you. Now, there are some new mechanics that came with this game, and corner slice, I would recommend having that set to off. It's going to change the way that you aim at people, so it just feels a little bit weird. Wall jump assist, okay, hear me out. This is a new thing. I'm going to walk you through it, okay? Let's talk about wall jumps. We mentioned this a little bit earlier, but one, you can wall jump forward, okay? So if you're trying to mantle something that's a little bit higher, you can wall jump directly against a wall. So all you got to do, and I'll show you with my controller, is just run and keep pushing forward. You can wall jump once off of that same wall, but if you want to jump twice, it's got to be a different wall or a way different area of the wall. So you can't like jump and then jump. Does that make sense? You literally, like, you can't double. There's like a delay when that happens, right? So if you want to hit multiple jumps, you have to be different walls, and you cannot do it going straight. Now, if you do like run up to a wall, all you have to do to activate that jump is to jump. You want to hit that double jump, you hit that double jump. The thing is when I go in and I hit my controller and we do wall jump assist, let's set it to on. And I go to jump, I'm not going to press it and it just jumps for me. And it's cool. But what happens in a situation where you need to be on target, right? It's a little bit harder because you'll just like jump at something and it'll automatically jump around them and you're going to get thrown off. And that's absolutely not something you want. Once you get thrown off, it's going to be hard to get back on target. You're going to lose that gunfight, which is unfortunate because you had the movement, right? So I would recommend trying to memorize to just learn the wall jump. So just know, like, if I want to wall jump and I want to hit a guy right here, be like specific on how you want to do it. Be intentional is what I would say whenever you go to activate any kind of movement. Like a lot of people just slide cancel or just slide around a corner, but when you go to fight someone that's right here, do you want to slide out in the open and give away your whole body? No, you want to slide, cancel, and stop right at the edge so that you have the option to go back around so that you can fight that enemy. So right here, shoot, back up, shoot, back up. It's super duper easy if you're intentional with the movement that you have within the game. And that's something that a lot of casual players really miss out on. And it's something that can improve your gameplay tenfold whenever you're intentional. You're thinking about what you're doing. You're not just hopping in and be like, oh, there's a guy there. Let me just run right at him like an absolute goofball. And you die because they already had the better position. You know what I'm saying? Even in like lower skill lobbies, and I'm not like talking smack, but in lower skill lobbies, you're going to see that a ton where people are less intentional with their movement and they just run to get as many kills as possible. You're not going to get those kills because you're not intentional. It's one of the most important things that so many people miss. So let's dive back in. Let's keep talking about this movement. Now, I do have it set up where activate roll assist is set to always. And the reason why is because there's this new mechanic where if you have the Mountaineer perk, I'm not sure what the perk is in Black Ops 7, but there's something, I think it is Mountaineer, where you will fall and at a specific height, you would usually die. If you would usually die and you don't think to try to activate that roll, you will die. But if you turn on this activate roll assist, which I don't know if there's even an area within the map that I can show this. If you don't turn on activate roll assist, then you're just guaranteed to die. So I would recommend going in and go, like, for players that don't have it memorized, set it to always. This is very different than wall jump assist because it's not a movement mechanic that's going to put you in a situation that's bad. It's always going to put you in a better situation to just activate that roll. That's why I think it's important. Now, next up, we have the slide and dive behavior. If you have the ability, hybrid is so important. If you set it to tap to slide, what's going to happen is You have to hold to dive. So if I'm trying to get out of a situation, there's no way to memorize the exact amount of time that it takes to dive over something. So you're gonna run into stuff all the time. Like like this is nearly impossible for me, and I'm like a very high skilled player. I can barely figure out how to jump over that. No, you do not want that. Now, tap to slide does activate slide instantly, which is really, really nice. So if you're trying to hit that slide, cool. If you're not planning on diving, just set it to tap to slide. Or actually, there's a better option for that. If you don't plan on diving, just do slide only, because slide only is what gets rid of all of the delay, right? So you just tap it and there's no delay whatsoever. But the big thing is you can't dive no matter what. Now, tap to slide, technically speaking, does add a slight delay. I think it's like let's see. Yeah. So if I go to tap to slide, you can change that to short and it'll lower the delay, but it's still not the same as having 0 delay, right? So what I would recommend is use hybrid, because hybrid, you have to be intentional. Again, an intentional movement mechanic is kind of what I like. Sorry, it's a little hot in here. I'm trying to turn on the fan. But an intentional movement mechanic is very, very important. So let's say I've got a guy shooting at me from this, and I'm right here. I see him. I don't have a chance. I got to dive over this car. And I do this a lot. If you watch me in Warzone, I'll dive over the vehicle. Now, the dive in Warzone's a little bit better. The car's a little bit tall. But you can see, like, what I like to do is I'll dive over the car, and then I'll slide off the back, and then I stand up and I shoot. That is a super cool thing that I've been utilizing in Warzone, and it has changed the game for me. Learning to use hybrid has maximized my kill record way more than it was when I used tap to slide or slide only. Diving is a big deal, and people are not taking advantage of it the way that they should. I've had professional players watch me, like spectate me. I kill them in a game. They spectate me, and they're like, whoa, how did he do that thing with his dive? And it's because I've memorized certain mechanics in specific ways so that I can do these cool movement things. So my recommendation, the way that hybrid works, is that you tap to slide, and then if you want to dive, you press and hold the sprint button and then tap to, like, on your circle button. For me, it's under my controller. So just a quick heads up how this works. I've got my buttons here. So my bottom right, this is going to be jump. My bottom left is going to be slide/crouch. My top left and top right are both set to ping, which, by the way, in multiplayer isn't going to really work. So I'm like sitting here doing it and it's not doing anything, but it's set to ping. It's set to the up on the D-pad. So that's how I set up my 4 paddles, which is, I'm telling you, got to get an Expel Pro Plus. Just use code Expel at checkout if you're interested in getting one of those. But that's why I recommend hybrid, is that you get such good movement with that you wouldn't get with the other options. Looking at automatic airborne mantle, I'd set that to off. I didn't see that when I was doing the settings earlier. Automatic airborne, not so much, but we'll get to another one that I do recommend you keep on. I would do sprint restore set to on, slide maintain sprint set to on, wingsuit activation I would set to manual, because you don't want to end up in a weird situation where you're just like randomly pulling out a wingsuit. I've had that happen numerous times way back in Blackout. It's a weird thing. It's a weird thing. You don't want it. Wall jump activation, press. Okay, so why I say this is because you have to spend more time trying to activate it, right? So if you set it to hold, you have to hold it. Now, what's cool about it is that I can jump and just keep holding it. So if that's something you're interested in, cool, maybe try it. I don't think that's something I'm interested in. I want to be, like I said earlier, intentional with how I do it. I want to just tap it, which, by the way, I think I kept on the where's the jump? Oh, it's off. Okay, cool. So I want to be intentional, so I'm always going to have it set to press instead of that. Next up, oh, we lost it. Where'd it go? I've lost it entirely. What the heck? Pause. Now, next up, we do have the slide and activate roll behavior. Okay. Now, obviously yours is set to automatic, but for the sake of it, you do want to memorize it. You do want to memorize it. So you can set it up for a couple of things, right? So your options are tap to slide, which is tap circle to slide, hold to perform an active roll. Tap to roll, which is tap to perform the active roll, hold the slide. You have double tap, which is tap to slide, double tap to perform an active roll. I would recommend tap to slide because that means when you jump off a high surface, if you're trying to roll, you just hold it. Because you have so much time whenever you're falling at those heights, if you hold it, then it's going to guarantee that roll. If you're trying to tap it, you may miss the moment where you need to tap it, and that's just weird. If you do double tap, it may like misunderstand it. If you're at a certain height, maybe you pull a parachute. So I just do tap to roll. Or tap to slide so that you can roll with hold. So follow this, tap to slide, activate roll camera. I've seen a lot of people, they really don't like the third person. I feel like it gives you a little bit more information. If you're like a higher tier player and you're running in higher tier lobbies, you can kind of use this as a broken mechanic to get third person. I just think a lot of people are going to prefer the first person. So if you want to not deal with that, set it to first person. If you want the opportunity to have more information, use the third person. Now we do have the movement advanced. Diving into this, there's not a lot that you need to change. One thing that I would keep on is grounded mantle. That is such a big deal. Grounded mantle, set that to on, because if you're struggling to get through windows, this has been my struggle in Warzone in the past so many times. Let's say you're struggling to get through a window here. What you can do is without it, you'll just kind of jump against it like this, right? But with it, you'll just mantle straight through. It also speeds up your mantles. So if you want your grounded mantle, you want to go straight over stuff and go pretty fast, having grounded mantle on will get you moving, because otherwise you have to jump and then mantle. And that slows you down quite a bit in certain scenarios. Literally in Warzone, near the hangars, there's an area where you can just jump across a wall like this, like super fast with grounded mantle. Without it, you have to jump, mantle, over and over and over, and you'll slow it down and you'll die. But if you have it on, I've had so many incredible plays from having grounded mantle on in that area. It is truly remarkable to have this setting available to us. I mean, I personally love it. Tactical sprint activation. If you have it set to double or single tap sprint, that means that once you start sprinting, so you start your sprint right here, you would have to press a button. But if you have it set to run, then you just press forward and it does it. So you're completely fine if you just do that. So I would set yours personally. I think it's better to set it to single tap run. Plunging underwater, you want to set that to free so that you can just go under and like dive like a dolphin whenever you want. Sprinting door bash, make sure to have that on if you're trying to get out of a situation. You don't want to run into a door. However, I don't think there are any doors, if I'm not wrong. Vehicle control mode, set that to driver control, aim-based control for score streak. Vehicle camera recenter, make sure to turn that off. That way you can always stay on target instead of it randomly snapping you away from them. And camera initial position, if you're trying to stare at an enemy or you're trying to make a vehicle play at any point in time, you want to be able to always look the direction that you want to look. So you hop into the car, you're staring at where you were staring before, right? Guys, right here, you hop in the car and you have it set to like snap back. It'll look at the front of the car. I'm trying to stay on target so I can swap seats and stare at this guy. It is such an underutilized thing, and free look is what allows you to do that. Lean out activation, I don't recommend setting it to ADS, because if there's someone on your car, you don't want to lean out so they can just shoot you. You want to stay there and shoot out of the front window. Next up, we have our combat behaviors. We have the aim down sight, hold, ADS plus melee. Hold melee is going to be how you pull it out, because you can't memorize via the weapon cycle. Because if I set it to weapon cycle, I press triangle 3 times to get to that melee weapon. But if I set it to hold melee, then I can just pull it out whenever I need. Now, keep in mind, this is the only melee weapon within Black Ops 7. It is incredibly annoying. I already had a conversation with Raven. This is not going to be a problem for long. They are going to fix the fact that this sound is stupid annoying. So, is what it is in that situation. I personally like to prioritize body shield for the sake of clips, but if you want to beat somebody down raw, then go ahead and do prioritize finishing move. I do think body shield is much better because that puts you in a tactical position, while finishing move will always put you in a position to die because you're just out there whacking some dude in the back of the head. Armor plate, always set that to apply all. C4 detonation, I would recommend setting that to 1 by 1. Equipment behavior, I would recommend setting that to hold. Manual fire, press. Combat settings, let's check. Actually, let's keep going. Scoreboard, set that to toggle. That's the last one. So combat settings, we have the focus behavior set. That's going to stay at hold. Change D-pad up behavior. Don't touch that. It should be set to ping. Keep it at ping. Change zoom activation. Leave that where it's at. Weapon mount, do not set that to instant. If you do have some kind of stick drift, you're screwed. It'll just pull you out constantly and you can't stay mounted on a like wall. So always keep that to short delay. For multiplayer, you want interact and reload behavior to set to prioritize reload. For Warzone, you want it to be set to prioritize interact. In multiplayer, you will reload way more than you need to pick things up off the ground. If you have it set to prioritize interact, you will constantly pick up things off the ground. It is incredibly annoying in multiplayer because you want to be able to tap. But for Warzone, you want to memorize to always hold to reload. So it's two very different games. You need to keep that in mind whenever you're playing it. Warzone is not the same as multiplayer. Multiplayer is not the same as Warzone. So I would recommend prioritize reload in multiplayer and prioritize interact in Warzone because you're looting a ton in Warzone. Mantle cancels reload. I have that set to on so that I'm not in a weird situation where it won't do what I want to. Sprint cancels reload. Keep that off. That way you can reload and be ready for a gunfight. Akimbo behavior, set those to independent. ADS stick swap. For the love of God, don't turn that on. Keep that set to off. Depleted ammo switch on. Weapon mount movement on. Weapon mount return off. So a lot of those are a little bit weird, but now we can officially move into the audio section, and we're going to dive into graphics right after this. So audio section, what I recommend to you, one, turn your gameplay music all the way off. I just had it on for the sake of the video. Gameplay music, turn that all the way off. Dialogue volume, want to set that to a 40. I didn't realize it was that loud. Set that to 40. Effects, set it to 100. Cinematic, set it to 0. The reason why is because if you have a headset, if you have some sort of audio interface, turn down your audio on that. If you turn down the effects or the master volume, you lose clarity. You lose a little bit of information because of the way that they have that set up in Call of Duty to where like it only sends you so much. Your headphones will figure it out for you and you can turn it down on your interface. You do not lose that quality on your interface, but the game will not send you information is the issue. Let me move around just a little bit. That way we don't get kicked out. We got about 2 minutes to get this done. So 2 minutes on audio. Should be fine. Speakers and headphones, whatever you've got. Speaker output, if you have 7.1 surround, I would activate that because it sounds way better. I do have that on a different one, but I've got this set up so that you guys can see what I'm running through and you'll understand in a second. Audio mix, I highly recommend Sucker Punch for multiplayer. If you're using Warzone, which is down the line, you're going to want to use home theater. Home theater is Sucker Punch, but it's a little bit spread out so that certain sounds don't cover each other, like footsteps and like PAs. If you're having that same issue in multiplayer, I recommend switching to home theater. If you're struggling to hear footsteps over PAs and stuff like that, or separate the sounds because they overlap so much, home theater is going to be your play. Now, I do have some cool things to run through here, which is a great audio tune for anybody trying to figure it out. First thing you want to do is go down to asymmetrical hearing compensation, set that to on. Go into your configure. You're going to see these settings right here. Match it. You've got 50, 0, negative 35, negative 35, negative 20, 50, 10, 10. That's going to give you the best audio that you can get for multiplayer without having to do some external audio or anything like that, which once again, there's nothing wrong with that. Every pair of headphones has a different audio tune. So fixing it to where it sounds better for your ears, there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you are not changing the in-game files. Like there's been mix amps in the game for years. If you have a PC, it's different audio than Sony. If you have a PlayStation, is a different audio interface than Xbox. In fact, they by default have better audio than PC. That's an interesting thing because they have Dolby surround sound available to them. So it's just one of those things. This isn't like me coping by any means. It's me just explaining that there's a big difference and people don't understand the way that works. There's nothing wrong with tuning your audio as long as you don't change game files to delete certain sounds. And that is not something that is able to be done. So don't worry about people saying stuff like that. It's all just bullshit lies. Reduce tinnitus sound, set that to on because if you're anything like me, you don't want to hear in your ear. It is terrible. Voice chat volume, completely up to you. We got 30 seconds. Hold on. We're going to do this. We're going to get through audio and then we'll get into graphics. Voice chat volume, set it to 26. Voice chat on. Game chat voice, all lobby, voice chat, whatever your device is. Microphone level, set that to something that's not going to blow your teammates' ears. You can check it with test. Test. Yep, there you go. What do you know? We got microphone mode, open mic, completely up to you. Microphone input. Oh my God, we made it through. I'll be right back for the graphics settings. Now we're going to do the fun stuff, the graphics settings. This is going to be something that a lot of people don't have. If you're on PlayStation and Xbox, do not skip this whole thing, all right? I'm going to fix your game, even though I'm on PC. This is going to make a difference. I have had thousands upon thousands of people say, I'm so glad I stuck through this section because I was able to change one thing, change the whole game for me. This is going to change everything for you. Stick through this with me, because if you don't, you're screwing yourself. It is you are missing so much vital information. I don't know why people skip this section. It is so ignorant. In fact, it's forceful ignorance is what it is. Don't do that. Stick with me. Let's rock through this, baby. Let's dive in. Let's go ahead and check this out. We've got our graphics settings right here. If you're on PC, you know, follow along perfectly. If you're on Xbox or PlayStation, follow as many settings as you physically can. Do not skip through this. Just stick with me. That way you can have the information to share with your friends, right? So display mode, full screen exclusive is going to give you the best frames. It's going to keep you from stuttering, stuff like that. Make sure it's set to full screen exclusive. Display monitor, set that to PG20. That's mine. That's my monitor. Set it to whatever your monitor is. I got a fancy 4K monitor. It's 240 hertz. Okay, that's... So we've got a 5090 in my system. Obviously, I wanted to make sure that we went all out so that I could, you know, show you everything possible in the highest quality. I will make my content in high quality. You guys need to follow the settings that I have here. That way you can maximize frames, because frames win games. I'm a weirdo. Let's go ahead and do the highest screen refresh rate that you have available to you. For me, it's 239, which is technically 240, but... You can see all these options. Do not max that out. We can cap it somewhere else if absolutely necessary. Display resolution, set that to your max display resolution, because it's weird if you don't set it to that. Not like you're weird, but like, well, I don't know. You're kind of weird. Set your display resolution to your max display resolution. That way it matches your monitor, right? You want to set your display gamma depending upon your device. A lot of people are going to keep it at sRGB. I set mine to BT1886. Because my monitor just looks better at that. I do have an OLED monitor, which means I don't need to change my brightness. If I was to change my brightness, it looks a little bit weird. For me, OLED, it's so bright already that I can see everything, so it's no issue. If you have this available to you, I would test both of these and see which runs better on your system. One adds a little bit of latency to your GPU or CPU, and it may feel worse than the other. So for me, on plus boost works best. For some people, depending upon your CPU, it may work better with just on. Some people, it may work better for off. This is one of those, like, you personally need to test this for your system. Eco mode, turn that to custom. Do not do efficiency or low consumption, because it will slow down your game. VSync off always, VSync menus off always, custom frame rate. If you are finding that your game gets a ton of stuttering, set a custom gameplay frame rate. That is the best thing that God, I keep getting kicked out of these lobbies. So yeah, if you're struggling with any kind of stutters in your game, I highly recommend capping your frame rate to something that alleviates those stutters, because that's kind of the big issue, is that the GPU is pushing really, really hard, where you have the wrong like setup for your GPU or something like that. For your reduce menu render resolution, you don't need anything crazy. Set it to maximal. If you set it to native, then cool, it's going to look cool, but like you don't need it. So set it to maximal. Pause game rendering, set that to off. You don't need that. Reduce quality when inactive, set that to 10 minutes or something higher. Focus mode, do not do that if you have a secondary monitor. It'll cut that monitor completely off. So set that to 0. High dynamic range, this is completely up to you. I hate it with a passion. Cut it off. I know that sounds goofy, but unless you're playing on a big TV, I just don't think that it's a necessary thing. Quality wise, let me run around for just a second so that we can actually not get kicked out of this lobby. So moving into quality, this is where things get a little bit interesting. Okay, this is where you're going to kind of want to pay attention to what I'm saying. Off rip, we've got the graphics preset. That should not be set to any of these. You should set that to custom if it's available to you, or just start changing settings along the way and it'll change naturally. Render resolution, set that to 100. Mine was set to 50 by default. Do I know why? No, absolutely not, but it was set to 50. Dynamic resolution, you do not want this if you have the option. If you were playing on PlayStation, it is on by default. If you were playing on Xbox, it's on by default. It is what it is. You have to deal with it. That is why your game at a distance will look a little bit weird. That's why I don't know how to explain it, but it basically makes it where whenever your game is lagging, it'll literally change the way that it looks. Like, let's say, oh, you know what? It's not like your PlayStation's a little too hot. Let's go ahead and lower the poly version of this car is kind of what it feels like. It looks like it switches to like a very pixelated version of the game, which is going to make it to where you can't really see a lot. I played on PlayStation 5 for a video. Didn't work out too well. What you can do to alleviate some of that is go to upscale and sharpening and set it to fidelity cast and set it to 100. This is the best thing you can do with the minimal frame rate change. In fact, sometimes it makes it run a little bit better. So I set fidelity cast to 100% and it makes it super sharp. I think by default it says to like NVIDIA image scaling, and this costs more frames and is not nearly as sharp. You can honestly see it in the ground, where the ground is a lot less sharp. And if I go back in and we change this back to fidelity cast and I apply it, the ground's just a little bit sharper. I know it's goofy, but that does make a difference when you're trying to see something at a distance. They're going to be a lot sharper without making it look like over sharpened. You know, like that's kind of the big thing that worries me, is that you get that over sharpened look, which actually makes it harder to see things. And Fidelity Cast doesn't do that, which is what I love. Never change that in like the NVIDIA settings. Just do it in the game. FSR frame generation. We use this at COD Next. F that, big dog. I did not like that. Like the game ran great, you know, like you can run and my frame's like double. Cool. That doesn't matter. Who cares if your frame's double if the game looks like trash? But honestly, if your computer runs better with it, I would recommend turning it on. The load that I've seen, like the CPU time and the latency that you get, is really, really minimal. I don't see an issue with it per se if your computer needs it, but frame generation is one of those things that's a little funky. I mean, you can see like as I get closer, you know what I'm saying? Like, look at this. Like the game doesn't really know what to do with a lot of things, and that's why it'll get a little bit weird, and that's why I recommend kind of keep it off. But it is fine to turn it on. It seems to work pretty good, and it doesn't give a ton of latency from what I can tell. Stuff like most people, if you're playing on a TV, you're not going to notice it anyway, you know? So VRAM scale targeting, set that as high as you can go. If you have a GPU that is struggling to run your whole computer in general, set it lower. I have a 5090. I want to max this out as much as possible. I want to give my GPU as much headroom as I physically can before it maxes out and cuts the game off and I dev error. So I set it to 90. Next up, variable rate shading. This is one of those things that I highly recommend you have on. You will not, under any circumstances, know the difference between variable rate shading on and off. It is so impossible to see, and I didn't realize it until like this last year. I was making a settings video and saying, I don't think you need it on. And then all of a sudden I cut it on. I was like, I can't tell a damn difference. Like there is really not a huge difference with it on and off, to the point where it's worth it to get the frames available to you. Now for you, I recommend setting your texture resolution to low or very low. I have mine set to normal for the sake of my videos. Texture filter, set that to low. Actually, a lot of this is just going to be set to low because you're not going to notice the difference unless you put them all to high. So it's like, is it worth it for like the visual fidelity? In a lot of these situations, whenever you get the fidelity from Fidelity Cast, no. So let's run through it. The texture filter anisotropic, set that to low. Depth of field, if you turn that on, you actually won't see a lot of things in like your close field of view, or like it'll look a little bit weird. I don't really know how to explain it. Like if I look past, you can see it kind of like blurs out just a little bit on that seat there. But let's say I go back in and I cut depth of field back off, it stays sharp at the edge of my view. So you want to keep everything in your view sharp. That way it'll just look much cleaner and you'll be able to get the details whenever you're checking different areas of your screen. So next up, we have detail quality. This is one of those things that I actually feel like kind of works well at normal, but it doesn't make a huge difference in how much it affects your GPU. So it's completely up to you. I keep mine on low, but high is barely a difference. In fact, I think even normal is the exact same as having it set to low. Yeah, it's literally the exact same as having it set to low. So like even just setting it to normal could be fine. What you can do is you can kind of check the way that it affects your CPU and your GPU, because right there you can see it shows that it uses my GPU. Like where is it? Like right there. It says GPU low and VRAM low. Both of those are in your GPU. So you're then going to look at the way that this affects how much you're using of your GPU VRAM. And what you can do is you can set that to different things depending upon that. So I recommend keeping particle resolution set to about normal, because this literally doesn't do like anything almost, but it does kind of change your GPU in a medium situation. Again, a lot of this you want to just set to low. Particle resolution, I find that you actually see like snipers a little bit better, which is weird, but very low is completely fine in most situations, especially in multiplayer. Bullet impact, set that to on. Persistent effects, set that to on. Both of these are pretty important for seeing things at a distance. And bullet impact specifically, actually, it'll allow you to know where the bullets are coming from because you see where they hit beside you if you decide to check that out. I use it a lot, actually. It helps me figure out where people are in Warzone. Shader quality, set this to low. It's unnecessary. I have my on-demand texture streaming set to optimize. I would recommend setting yours to 32 if you have that available to you. Turn on download limits and set that to 1 gigabyte. If you go higher than that, it's just a lot. It's taking from your current, what is it called? Your like hard drive space. So if you don't have a lot of hard drive space, it probably isn't a good idea. Like you can change it to something stupid high, But what ends up happening realistically is that cache like starts filling up and you're hitting how much room you have in your drive, right? Which is fine, but it's another thing going on in the background and it can change the way that your game is played. So I don't recommend having that super high, although it does help with the way the textures look. But the lower you have it, the less it's going to mess with your internet, the less it's going to mess with your packet loss, stuff like that, especially if you have low quality internet. Shadow quality, set that to very low. Even if you set it to ultra, it is so minimal that you're really not going to notice the difference. In fact, what I'm going to do, obviously you can tell that it's going to be more jagged, but look, this is a shadow right here. We'll check it out. Okay, shadow right there. I'm going to go in, we're going to go into graphics again, and we're going to go to the shadow quality and set that to very low. We click apply, and it just kind of blurs the edges. Like, that's the difference. It just kind of blurs the edges. You still get the shadow. In fact, you can see my character running right here. This is my character moving back and forth. You can see that like character running, so you're not going to have an issue seeing people moving with it set to low. So I recommend setting it to low because you don't need that, and it's so intensive on your graphics that it's really going to mess with the amount of frames that you're able to get. The biggest thing really whenever it comes to frames is texture resolution. You can see it moving, how much VRAM it uses. So that's kind of the biggest thing. And by the way, when you max out your VRAM, when you hit that 90, that's when you get dev errors. Fun fact, that's how you'll get a DirectX error, is if you have your stuff set so high that you're maxing that out, it'll cause dev errors. So I figured that out recently, and it has changed the way that I do my settings now. Especially whenever I'm like trying to get like recordings and stuff. I figured out how to take it from 80 to 50 and it still looks very much the same in Warzone. Volumetric quality. This is a very interesting thing. If I was to like kind of look at the sun rays right here, you see, I don't know if it's possible to see, but if I move left to right, you can see there's like a small, like this right here, you can see that there's kind of a gap right here in the sun rays. If I move, it closes it, right? If you go in and you go into your settings, you set this to low, it's a little bit more minimal. It's not as much of a big deal, but it does affect kind of like the way that the sun bounces off of certain reflective objects and it'll glare in your face. So that's why I actually keep mine on low, because it doesn't even look better. It makes it more difficult to play whenever you have that volumetric quality set to high. Deferred physics quality. Honestly, I have not seen this do literally a single thing. Yeah, I don't see anything. I mean, maybe if hold on, let me see the character. The water and ground deformation. So if I check the water here, we'll go in here and we'll go to graphics. Let's go to set it to off. Yeah, just don't use it. Like, it's not doing anything for you. I don't know. I don't even know why you care, honestly. Yeah, cut that off. Weather grid volumes, cut that off. That's basically going to show like water on your character's body. The same thing goes for wave wetness. That's going to go show water on your character's body. Who cares? You can't see it physically, so it's not something you need. Moving over to view, this is where things are going to get a little bit interesting. This is the big thing for a lot of you guys on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and stuff like that. This is going to be the one that really makes a big difference for you. So offer it. Let's go to field of view. 105 minimum. I do not care what your grandmother and your granddad told you from what they had going on back in Nam. No, they had a 200 field of view IRL. Okay. You want to have a 105 minimum. It's about the information you can receive from what you can see. If I set this to 90, literally look at my screen. Look at how much it's widening at the edges, right? If I set this to what it's set to default, 90, I get half the statue. If I set it to 120, I can see the whole damn statue. It's about how much you see going on around you. It is incredibly vital that you have it to 105 minimum. As a note, when you hit 120, you will feel aim assist less. You have to actively think to activate it. When you hit 120, you are activating it no matter what, the exact same, no matter what FOV you're on. But when you hit 120, it will feel like you're not getting as much aim assist. You are getting the same. You just have to recognize how it works a little bit more. A lot of people are going to lie to you and say you get less or you get more. It does not work like that. It is not on the field of view. That is just not something that's real. So many people have gotten that wrong, and it's the most frustrating thing on the face of the planet. So let me move just a little bit. Hold on. Go back in it. Sorry, graphics. So want to set that to 120 if you can deal with it, okay? ADS field of view. Keep that on affected. We have weapon field of view. Set that to wide. You can see how that changes my weapon. Literally. Oh, I'm changing the wrong thing. You can see how that changes my weapon right there. I feel like setting it to wide just allows you to see more of the gun. If you set it to narrow, honestly, it's not bad. I don't see an issue with it. In fact, in the game, you may want to set it to narrow in certain situations, but I feel like wide kind of changes the way that it looks, and I just preferred it wide. Again, if you want to set it to narrow, like narrow, the weapon looks bigger. Default, the weapon looks as intended. Wide, it looks smaller. It looks smaller, but it takes up a different area of your screen. So depending on the weapon, you may want it set to narrow or you may want it set to wide. Think about that whenever you go into a game with like a sniper or something like that that takes up a lot of your screen. Third person field of view, max that puppy out. Vehicle field of view, set that one to wide as well. That one actually is kind of a field of view thing, so I recommend setting that to wide. World motion blur and weapon motion blur. All right, what I want you to do is I want you to point to me where you see a guy on your screen right now. Yeah, I know there's not one, but you wouldn't be able to see him anyway because you can't see, you know? Don't do that. Cut it off. Cut it off. People are like, how'd you see that guy? Because I don't have motion blur on, bro. Like, he's, whoo. The other thing is first person camera movement, third person camera movement. Those two are going to make a big difference. If you change this tab, you're going to get streamer aim. If you only change this tab, you will get aim that looks just like your favorite streamer. Swear to God. Swear to God. Why do their guns not move? This tab right here. This is what does it. These settings right here are the exact thing that is why everybody that makes content, whoa, they got crony or something. No, brother, it's just this tab. It's that simple. So set everything up like I have it right here. You should be good. Inverted flashbang. I'm gonna kind of cover this for a split second. If you get flashbanged, your screen goes bright, right? And when it's coming back down, you can still see movement. But when it's dark, it's hard to see things in the dark. I don't know if you know this. Cut off the light. Can you see something? No. Okay. And when it goes from dark to light, you still can barely see. But when it's bright and that brightness is lowering down, you can still see. Don't do inverted flashbang. You're gonna, no, it's not worth it. Not worth it. Okay, so we do have one more thing, which is interface here. Let's just run through this. Shouldn't be super crazy. Global, menu prompts, automatic. Gameplay tips, on. You need to learn the game. Tutorials, keep it set to on. In my personal opinion, I think it's fine. Whenever you figure out the game fully, cut it off. Skip introduction movie. If you're trying to get back into a game, you want to keep that on. If you're never going to rejoin a game, you can keep it off, I guess. Skip kill cam, never turn that on. Tooltips, turn that on so that you know what's going on in the game. Telemetry, completely up to you. If you struggle with like internet and stuff, set that to essentials. I think that's an important thing to do. You can see I'm getting 240 FPS right now, which is kind of crazy. The game do be running. Telemetry label size, if you can't see like you're on a TV or something, you can set it to larger. They used to have an even bigger setting in Warzone, so pretty interesting. We've got network in-game icons. That way we know whether or not, you know, we're lagging out or we're struggling with like hardware or something like that. Next up, we have readability. This one's actually a pretty important tab. For me, I would recommend setting the menu text size to larger. Probably should have told you this way earlier, but such is life. I set mine to larger so that you can see it and so that you can read what things do. And then color customization, I think, is incredibly important. Not for anything other than your color filter. Set it to filter 2. Like, it is that simple. Turn on filter 2, set color filter target to both, do world color intensity at 100. The game will look beautiful after that, because a lot of these games, they don't have a ton of color. You know, when you hop into Warzone, you're not gonna see a ton of color with Verdansk. When you set it to filter 2, it is a whole different ball game. I mean, it just looks way better in my personal opinion. Now, going back into the interface settings, we want to head on over to gameplay HUD. This is pretty interesting. You can actually turn off the gameplay HUD visibility I don't know what the hell it actually does, to be honest. Yeah, I guess it turns off loadout information, metal, stuff like that. I set mine to on. All this stuff does not pop up by default anyway, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I would keep it on, keep everything else set to on. I think that's fine. Player names, you don't need someone's clan tag whenever you're trying to figure out callouts, unless you call them by their clan tag, which is crazy. Set it to abbreviated. HUD bounds should be set to the edge of your screen. We have the radar, keep that to off. If you're struggling for, if you're struggling to actually see the mini map, if it's showing up as like a white outline with like your character and like other characters like moving around and like some circles on the inside of it, but it's not an actual mini map, set that to radar off. It's a weird glitch that's been in the game for a long time. Don't know why it exists. Mini map visibility, set it to on. Mini map rotation, set it to on. Compass, set it to on. That way you can make call outs. Crosshair lines, set it to on. You want them to spread so that you know how your gun is going to hip fire. Sorry, I'm just moving so we can get some stuff going here. Go back into gameplay HUD. We've got crosshair dot. You definitely want to set that to on. Do not change your dot scale. I don't know why creators tell people to do this. You will cover someone's head if you turn your crosshair dot larger. If you cannot see it in the first place, you're blind. And that's okay. That's all right. But you don't need to go bigger because it's just going to cover someone's head, which means you won't know what you're shooting at, which defeats the purpose in the first place, right? You want to just use this dot to center on targets before like they're pushing to you, right? So like you want to center where you think they're going to be, which is like kind of chest area. You always want to stay up. You don't want to look at the ground while you're running. That's what the centering comes down to, right? So we'll go back into interface here. Crosshair opacity, make sure that's set to 100 or like something above 75. Crosshair color, use white or pink. Do not change it to anything else because everything else is something that is going to change with whether or not you get a hit marker or a damage like base hit marker. So I think that's about it. I think we covered pretty much everything. I don't know that there's anything else. Everything in here is completely fine. Obviously, you know, profanity filter, stuff like that. But ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed the video, if you learned something today, make sure to go to expel.gg and get a controller as well as hit that subscribe button. That way you can watch me more. I hope this was helpful. Call of Duty Next was an interesting experience. And I feel like I learned a lot so that I could throw it into this video. So the devs kind of told us a lot of stuff that you would have otherwise not known. So I think that that was a very important thing for me at the very least. But either way, hope you have a great day. I'll catch you in the next one. Use code Expel at checkout on the controller. Get in there, game. All right, bye.